This is Will Gray of the Knights of Gray. I know that you were expecting a flow video from me today about longsword, spear, and staff. And it's done. I have it. I'm ready to put it up. But this takes a precedent. It's way more important as far as I'm concerned, and so we're going to cover that today. And then we'll get to the flow videos again. This video came about because at least once a week, sometimes twice a week, I get a letter from somebody saying something along the lines of, I'm a master blah blah blah, sword fighting blah 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 of blah blah blah, and what I'm doing is real, and since you're not doing what I'm doing, yours isn't real. And you're using toy boffers where I use live steel, and they can't see the point that they're tools. Anyway, I try to argue this point where I can. Sometimes I have to fight it on a theological base, explaining that the concept that what I do is right and everything else is wrong is what every holy war has ever been based on. Or I use a tactical idea, such as there's more than one field of combat, and with those different fields of combat, there are different types of combat. And so saying that because you use this particular type or style does not make mine invalid. Sometimes they listen, sometimes they don't. In this particular case, I got another letter. And it comes from someone I knew 15 years ago. Now, I haven't seen him in 15 years. They haven't seen me. And I said, hey, why don't you watch a couple of my videos? You'll get to know who I am again. And so they sent me one of these letters again. And I've tried to talk to him about it. But he has one point that I think is worth mentioning. Now, I'm sure that some of the statements in what I'm about to read you may disagree with. But that doesn't change the validity of it in any way, shape, or form. I just want you to remember and remind your knights that what you are doing is and should be fun. It's not combat. Combat is fear, it's adrenaline, it's hatred and anger and confusion and pain and blood and death. It's wanting the other guy dead for no other reason than he is the other guy, and because you just don't want to die. It's not knowing where the fuck you are because you just had some asshole blow a bomb up right next to you and start shooting at you from a schoolyard full of kids, because he knows that you can't shoot back without killing the kids. It's still shooting back because you don't care if the kids die, because you hate them all. You hate them for making you kill. It's not a normal thing for someone of our society to do. You hate them because you wouldn't be there if they would just stop. All that hoo-wah bullshit goes right out the window when it happens. You become visceral, animal, inhuman. At that moment, all that matters to you, you're men and surviving. Make sure that they understand that they don't want to see combat. Combat never leaves you. You live the rest of your life with it. Stick to fun and make it fun. Embrace it as fun. Then at least I can say that the men and women I work with are doing something and providing our citizens with a shield that gives them a kind of innocence. God, it messes me up every time I have to read that. That's real combat, people. That's real combat. We may train for a real altercation. Man confronts you in a bar and pushes you down and says something stupid like, "You looking at my girlfriend? I'll beat the shit out of you." And he really is. He's really gonna beat the shit out of you. You can snap a pool cue in half and survive that night. And that's real. Alright? I'm not saying that what I have been training you isn't real. What I'm saying is there is a different word of combat that I hope that none of you ever have to face. Now, you may argue the point, that combat and what you've been training and sword fighting and so on and so forth has been around for thousands of years before bombs and bullets. That's true. And combat is more than just bombs and bullets. You know, combat has been around for 1,000 years, and I agree. But have you really thought about that? Stop picturing yourself with a shinai or a kendo stick or a boffer in your hand. Picture yourself with live steel, no longer a tool for training, but a real martial weapon built to kill. And you have to charge into 100 men with friends on both sides of you. And you must react or die. And you may die still anyway, but if you do react and you don't die, you're killing people. Limbs lost, cut in half, stabbed through the chest, and they cough up blood in your face. Alright? You don't forget that. The man who wrote that letter, who I believe that situation really happened to, do you think that he's ever going to forget it? Do you think that he is ever not going to have nightmares? Do you think that he is ever going to be able to be the person he was before he ever had to get into combat? This does not change just because you have a sword in your hand. I, at least once in my life, have been given the position of react or die. At least once in my life, I held a man's life in my hand and I had to make a choice of whether or not I was going to kill him or not. These moments in my life have brought me to the point where I continuously teach love. It's what you do. The Knights of Grey, honor, respect, control, discipline, bravery. And I always continuously say, I will not teach anything past basics. My intermediate classes are about flow. And because of this, I refuse to teach combat. I just, in a recent video, I said I'm not going to teach people how to kill. I don't want you to have to ever be in that particular situation. I just wanted you to think about it. That there are people out there today dying in the midst of some of the most horrendous situations you can possibly imagine. Now, I don't care if you agree with it. I don't care if you agree with the politics behind it. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about if the war is good or bad or whatever. I am talking about combatants. Real combatants in real combat. It's scary, scary stuff. And guess what? If you survive it, the nightmare doesn't end. Matter of fact, it gets worse every time you close your eyes. It's nothing to make fun of. There's people who play video games that are all about first-person shooters like Halo or Call of Honor or Call of Duty. It turns it into a game. And killing people is not a game. I teach style. I teach flow. I teach a balance within yourself. And I also teach self-defense and combat, and I use fighting as a metaphor for something greater that I'm teaching. I don't teach combat. I teach something else. It's up to you to really dig deep and see what it is that I'm teaching. For the person who wrote me that letter, when you are not in the midst of combat, and you have a moment, remember your wife, remember your kids, remember all of the wonderful things that you're fighting for. And hopefully when you come home someday, you will find peace. For all my knights out there who are sitting there going, oh wow, this is really dark stuff. It is. But remember that there's more to life than this really dark stuff.